Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. Imagine plugging in a $4.75 billion supercomputer, and within 30 seconds, it physically melts itself.
Yeah, that is a pretty terrifying thought.
It is, right. But that is the very real physical bottleneck the artificial intelligence industry is facing today.
Exactly.
And it explains exactly why Ecolab is handing KKR $4.75 billion in cash for a company called CoolIT Systems.
Well, the hardware reality of artificial intelligence is catching up to the software ambitions. I mean, when you look at the financials of this specific Ecolab acquisition, it tells a very clear story about where the capital is flowing right now.
Right, because the numbers here are massive.
They are. Ecolab expects CoolIT to generate about $550 million in sales over the next 12 months alone.
Wow, $550 million in just 1 year.
Yeah. It is an all-cash deal, and the timeline is firmly set to close in Q3 2026.
So we are looking strictly at this exact headline today, breaking down the details of the acquisition and categorizing the market winners and losers based strictly on this information.
Because there is a lot to uncover here.
Definitely. We are speaking directly to you, the listener, to cut straight to what this transaction means for the market. But before we get to the stock tickers, we really need to understand the mechanics.
Right, the actual hardware.
Exactly. For someone trying to grasp the scale here, what exactly does CoolIT do to justify a $4.75 billion price tag?
At a basic level, they supply liquid cooling systems.
Right.
They build the highly specialized thermal management hardware for hyperscale and colocation operators.
Yeah.
And, they count major hardware designers like Nvidia and AMD among their top customers.
Hold on, let me stop you there for a second. Before we go further into the hardware, for the listener who might just know the big consumer tech brands, what exactly is the difference between a hyperscaler and a colocation operator in this context?
Yeah, that is an essential distinction to make. Hyperscalers are the massive cloud providers, think Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure.
The tech giants.
Right. They build and operate their own massive data centers to support their global networks.
Got it. And the colocation operators.
Colocation operators, on the other hand, are essentially specialized real estate landlords.
Oh, okay. Like commercial landlords, but for tech?
Exactly. They own the data center building, the power connections, and the cooling infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then they rent out physical space and power capacity to various corporate tenants who actually bring their own servers.
So CoolIT is selling the physical plumbing and thermal control systems to both the tech giants building their own facilities and the landlords renting out space to everyone else.
Precisely. They provide the physical systems that pump liquid coolant directly through these data centers.
Which keeps the servers from overheating and failing?
Yeah. That's the whole goal.
Well, let's talk about the physical reality of these data centers, because that physical reality makes a nearly $5 billion cooling acquisition entirely logical. I mean, why is the industry abandoning traditional air cooling?
We have to look at the basic physics of modern artificial intelligence chips.
Okay, walk us through it.
So, newer chips, specifically the advanced GPUs required for AI processing, create much higher computing densities.
Right.
A standard server rack a few years ago might pull maybe 5 to 10 kilowatts of power.
5 to 10, okay.
But a modern AI server rack loaded with advanced GPUs can easily pull 100 to 120 kilowatts.
Wait, really? That is a massive jump.
It's totally unprecedented. That is a massive concentration of electrical power in the exact same physical footprint. And, all that electricity inherently converts to heat.
So trying to cool a 100 kilowatt server rack with standard data center air conditioning is it's like trying to put out a house fire with a handheld blow dryer.
Yeah, that captures the disparity perfectly.
Air just doesn't work anymore.
Right, because air is actually a fantastic insulator, but a terrible conductor of heat. Water, or specialized dielectric fluid, is exponentially more efficient at capturing and moving thermal energy.
It just holds the heat better.
Exactly. You literally cannot push enough chilled air through a server rack fast enough to stop these dense AI chips from reaching catastrophic temperatures.
So it is not a software limit we are hitting, it is a strict thermodynamic one.
Pure physics.
Which brings to mind the high-performance car engine analogy. I mean, if you're driving a basic commuter car, a standard fan blowing air over the engine block is perfectly fine.
Sure, it gets the job done.
But when you build a dedicated race car pushing maximum horsepower nonstop, eventually a standard fan is completely useless. Liquid coolant becomes absolutely mandatory to prevent the engine from destroying itself.
And let's extend that analogy to what happens when things go wrong. If a race car engine overheats, it seizes up. If an AI server rack overheats, the chips engage thermal throttling.
Meaning they just slow down.
Yeah, they automatically slow their performance down to a crawl to protect the silicon, which, defeats the entire purpose of buying expensive high-speed processors in the first place.
Right, you are paying for maximum computational speed, and heat is robbing you of that speed.
Exactly. This hardware reality makes thermal management a crucial area for investors to monitor. Liquid cooling is not a luxury upgrade. It is an operational requirement.
Knowing that liquid cooling is the new mandatory standard, let's look at the companies providing the solutions and the chip companies that rely on them. Let's name the winners.
Well, the Ecolab acquisition highlights liquid cooling as one of the clearest growth areas inside AI data center infrastructure right now.
Right, so first we have the beneficiaries tied directly to liquid cooling systems, heat transfer, and thermal efficiency.
The ones building the physical components.
Exactly. If you are tracking the infrastructure players building this actual hardware, you are looking at Ecolab ticker ECL, Vertiv ticker VRT, and Modine Manufacturing ticker MOD.
Those are the direct infrastructure players.
Mm.
Modine, for instance, specializes in the actual heat exchange coils and components, while Vertiv provides comprehensive thermal and power management systems for the entire facility.
And right next to them, we have the AI chip and compute demand winners. These are the hardware makers supported by the implementation of better cooling.
The names everyone knows.
Yep, those tickers are Nvidia, NVDA, and AMD, AMD.
The relationship between the cooling providers and the chip designers is entirely codependent.
Okay, let me stop you there and push back.
Sure.
Do these thermal management companies actually have a functional advantage right now? Or are investors just temporarily rewarding anything generally adjacent to artificial intelligence?
I get why you'd ask that.
I mean, is this just a hype rotation where any company that says cooling gets a stock bump?
It is a functional necessity, not just adjacent excitement. The rationale is grounded in those strict physical constraints we just discussed.
The thermodynamics.
Right. You cannot sell a colocation operator 10,000 advanced GPUs if their facility will literally melt down the moment they turn them on.
That makes sense.
Therefore, better cooling directly supports the continued demand for the chips themselves. Without the liquid cooling infrastructure in place, the chip sales hit a brick wall.
So they literally need each other.
Exactly. The hardware makers need companies like Vertiv and Modine to succeed so that their own customers can actually plug the new chips in.
The hardware simply cannot function without the environmental control. Now, pumping thousands of gallons of coolant requires massive industrial pumps.
Oh, absolutely.
And you cannot run those on standard data center wiring.
Exactly right. Cooling systems do not operate in a vacuum. As AI data centers expand, they need far more than just the cooling hardware itself.
They need entirely new electrical infrastructure.
Yes.
So we're looking at the companies providing stronger power systems, electrical equipment, and grid support hardware. The tickers positioned to capitalize here are Eaton ETN, Hubbell-HUBB, and Quanta Services-PWR.
Because the electrical requirements of a liquid-cooled facility are entirely different from an older air-cooled facility. You are dealing with continuous heavy voltage demands just to run the environmental controls.
This feels a lot like deciding to upgrade the plumbing in an old house. You bring in a massive industrial water pump to handle a new system.
And the moment you turn on that massive industrial water pump, you blow the main breaker.
Precisely. You realize you cannot just upgrade the plumbing, you have to completely rip out the main electrical panel because the old panel cannot handle the electrical draw of the new pump.
And that is exactly what is happening on a massive commercial scale. As liquid cooling adoption rises, the broader data center electrical build-out trade strengthens right alongside it.
It's a package deal.
Yeah. You cannot just draw a direct-to-chip liquid cooling module into a 10-year-old server room. Advanced cooling dictates a need for a total upgrade of the electrical infrastructure supporting the facility.
So for the listener who isn't an electrician, what does that actually entail?
Well, it means you need upgraded transformers to step down the massive voltage coming from the grid.
Oh,
You need entirely new switchgears, which are essentially giant industrial circuit breakers that route power safely and prevent catastrophic electrical fires.
right, because the risk of fire is very real.
Very real. And a power blip that stops a coolant pump for 10 seconds could fry millions of dollars of AI hardware.
Wow.
So the backup power routing has to be industrial grade. The cooling upgrade actively forces a complete electrical upgrade, which is why companies like Eaton and Hubble are seeing so much momentum.
Which means capital is flowing heavily toward liquid cooling and new electrical infrastructure. But, capital is finite.
It always is.
Money flowing toward these new technologies inevitably rotates away from older technologies. So let's look at the losers in this market rotation.
The Ecolab transaction clearly points to a movement away from traditional air cooling toward liquid-based systems.
And that creates relative pressure on companies heavily associated with older cooling approaches.
The legacy systems.
Right. These are the traditional air cooling and HVAC companies. The tickers facing relative pressure here are Carrier Global CARR, Train Technologies -T2, and Johnson Controls JCI.
Those companies are highly associated with the traditional methods of pushing chilled air through raised floors in legacy server rooms.
We also have the legacy building systems and facility efficiency names. If the market is deciding the real upside is strictly in AI-specific cooling infrastructure, these more general building automation names face headwinds.
They definitely do.
The tickers here are Johnson Controls, again, JCI, and Lennox International, LII.
Because capital allocation is always a matter of choices, and the market is choosing pure play infrastructure right now.
But wait, let me challenge this.
That's right.
These traditional HVAC and building system companies are massive, established corporations. Johnson Controls and Trane have immense research and development budgets. Are they actually losing active business right now, or is the market unfairly penalizing them? I mean, why can't they just buy their way into the liquid cooling space with their billions in revenue?
Well, it is less about losing outright revenue tomorrow and more about valuation multiples and capital rotation.
Okay, explain that.
We are looking at where the growth momentum is heading. As the market firmly decides the future upside is in AI-specific cooling infrastructure, these legacy companies naturally face headwinds.
Because they aren't pure play AI companies.
Right. They may still have very profitable legacy businesses cooling office buildings and hospitals, but the premium valuations are being awarded to the pure play companies solving the immediate AI bottleneck.
I see.
Investors rotating their capital toward liquid cooling specialists leaves these traditional air cooling names with less momentum.
Even if they invest in the new tech themselves.
Exactly. Even if Johnson Controls invests heavily in liquid cooling, that AI revenue is diluted by their massive legacy HVAC business. Pure-play companies like CoolIT or Vertiv give investors direct exposure to the AI infrastructure build-out without the baggage of legacy commercial real estate cooling.
So they are losing the narrative momentum, which translates directly to stock momentum.
Yes. In a capital rotation, you don't have to be a failing company to be a losing stock. You just have to be growing slower than the new industry standard.
That brings us to our final category of losers. And this one goes beyond the equipment manufacturers entirely.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
The companies that actually own and build the physical data center properties are facing a brutal new financial reality.
The actual real estate operators present a very compelling set of challenges in this transition.
We are talking about data center REITs, or real estate investment trusts, that are currently facing substantially higher build costs. The specific tickers feeling the pressure are Digital Realty DLR and Equinix EQIX.
These real estate operators are caught in a difficult capital expenditure cycle.
My question is, how does a better cooling technology end up being a negative for the companies that actually own the buildings? Shouldn't a more thermally efficient building be a good thing for the landlord?
You definitely think so, but it comes down to the financial strain of the initial capital outlay.
The upfront costs.
Right. We are talking about the difference between operating expenses and capital expenditures. While advanced cooling systems improve long-term operating performance, they severely increase the upfront capital expenditures required to build new AI-ready facilities.
Walk us through the physical logistics of retrofitting one of these buildings.
It is an engineering nightmare.
Really?
Yeah. First, you have the sheer physical weight. Water weighs over 8 pounds per gallon.
Okay.
When you start pumping thousands of gallons of liquid coolant through a facility, you often have to physically reinforce the concrete floors of the building just to handle the weight of the liquid-filled server racks.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about the floor weight.
It's massive. And then you have to install the massive plumbing architecture, the specialized pipes, the leak detection systems, the secondary heat exchange loops, all inside an active building.
That sounds incredibly expensive.
It is. Operators face immense pressure because they require heavy capital spending immediately just to stay competitive in this new environment.
They don't have a choice.
No choice at all. It creates a brutal dilemma for the landlords. If they do not spend the billions to upgrade the structural and plumbing elements of their buildings, their facilities become completely obsolete for the hyperscalers and AI clients.
And if they do spend the money?
If they do spend the money to upgrade, their profit margins are compressed by the heavy upfront costs. They have to take on debt or use cash reserves to finance the retrofits, which hurts their near-term financial metrics.
So it's a lose-lose in the short term.
Pretty much. The cost of remaining a top-tier facility has suddenly multiplied, and the market is pricing in that margin compression.
So the cooling technology forces them into a massive spending cycle they absolutely cannot avoid. They are essentially forced buyers of the equipment from companies like Ecolab and Vertiv, which explains why the equipment makers are the winners and the landlords footing the bill are the losers.
That is the exact dynamic playing out right now. The infrastructure providers hold the pricing power, and the real estate operators have to pay the toll to keep their buildings relevant.
Let's summarize the core trading takeaway from everything we have covered today. The cleanly defined read-through from this $4.75 billion headline is that AI infrastructure is no longer strictly about chips, servers, and power generation.
Not anymore.
Cooling is now a core, undeniable part of the build-out story. It is a mandatory physical requirement dictating massive capital flows.
The computing hardware simply cannot evolve without the thermal management evolving first. But, it leaves us with a provocative question to consider moving forward.
What's that?
Well, if thermal management is the current physical limit directing billions of investment dollars right now, what happens when we eventually reach the physical limits of liquid cooling?
Oh, wow. Because water can only absorb so much heat so fast.
Exactly. What will be the exact next physical barrier in the AI infrastructure build-out when liquid is no longer enough?
This is not financial advice or buy or sell recommendations. This is purely the opinion of the author.